All right, it's time to put my hater hat on. I haven't done this since the Kevin Durant video, but this is the one that's gonna get me a bunch of shit. I'm glad YouTube removed the dislikes just in time for this. But in today's video, I'm gonna talk about the reason why I don't think as highly about Anthony Davis as a lot of people do. Rudy, if you could CGI a hater hat on me, that'd be great. I gave you a raise, I assume you now have CGI capability. Over the offseason, I did a series debating who is the best player in the NBA. In that series, multiple times, I said there were 8 candidates for this title: Kawhi Leonard, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, James Harden, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic. And one of the most common comments that I would get in response to this list in particular was, how do I not have Anthony Davis in the same conversation as these players? Do you not consider Anthony Davis to be a contender for the best player in the league? No, I do not. There are a variety of reasons for this that I'm gonna go through in this video, and as for why I decided to make this video now, well, the early season struggles of the Lakers, while a lot of the blame has gone towards Russell Westbrook, I've also seen a little bit of it not really thrown Anthony Davis's way, and just in general, I've been picking up on some of my problems with Anthony Davis sticking out more than they really ever have this year from the games that I've watched. So that kind of just inspired me to talk about it. It's not like he's on some historically bad run or anything and now is the time to capitalize. He actually had a great game the other day, but I don't know, I want to talk about it, so let's do that. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. I am 10K subscribers away from 200K on this channel, which is my goal to hit by the end of the year. So if you're watching this video and you enjoy it, please subscribe to help me achieve that goal. Before we get into this, I need to add a very important disclaimer, though it's kind of gonna go swept under the rug regardless. When we are talking about a player potentially being the best in the league in any context, but especially in the modern one with how talented the league is right now, you have to nitpick. My problems with Anthony Davis are not necessarily major indictments on him as a player. The guy is phenomenal, but there are these minor detractors, which when you pile them all up, ends up resulting in him, to me, not being in the conversation for the best player in the league. It is these smaller details that make me shake my head when people say that he is the best player in the league. AD is a superstar, he is incredibly talented, one of the best two-way players in the game, and he is an instrumental part of one of the best teams in the league and a championship team. But he's not the best player in the league, and here's why. There are really 2 major factors in why I do not believe Anthony Davis is the best player in the league, and I have him in either the 9th or 10th spot, depending on how I feel about Damian Lillard that day, but typically gonna put him at 9. Those reasons are it factor and some of his mental aspects of his game, period, as well as just the fact that he is a big man and the limitations that come with that, and like a true big man, but we'll elaborate on that further. Also, I think injury is a factor that a lot of people would hold over Anthony Davis. I do not subscribe to this mentality. To me, I think it is ludicrous to conflate a basketball skill and basketball ability with health. You can devalue a player because of how often they are hurt, but you cannot say a player is a worse basketball player because they are consistently injured. You can be the best player in the league and miss half of the season. Now, you're not going to be as valuable as you would be if you played all the season, obviously, but if you are the most talented player in basketball, then you are the most talented player in basketball, and that is the end of the discussion. So I do not hold injury over Anthony Davis in this conversation, as I don't with literally anybody. Anyways, that's for my 2 reasons. Let's talk about this big man thing first. I'm probably going to make a video on this at some point, potentially even a deep dive, where I talk about the value of the center position and how it's just straight up less than it used to be. And that's not from a lack of talent. The NBA has as much big man talent as it has since the 2000s, but the thing is, it's almost like this talent is interrupting what felt like the evolution that was to come, and it's not in that these players necessarily fit with the direction the game is going, but they're so good that it overrides that evolution, if that makes sense. With how the game is evolved, separate from that outlier talent, a player with traditional big man skills does not have the impact on the game that they used to. Today's game is perimeter dominated, whether from guards or wings, it's just not dominated by bigs. Of course, there are two players that I would consider complete outliers, and these are guys who are in my top 8, and that is both Nikola Jokic and Giannis. I think both of these guys are significantly different from your traditional big man, especially Giannis in this case, and then Jokic's playmaking just kind of takes away all of the detractors he has as a big man. So those guys don't really count, even though yes, they are big men. They are just so particularly unique that I don't think this takes away from their value. AD does not have some wildly unique factors to his game that make him not similar to big men of the past. You see him get comparisons to guys like Kevin Garnett, and hey, that's great, but I do think that there is some limitations of that archetype in the modern game. Also, he's not as good as Kevin Garnett, but that's a different conversation. I have a similar problem in this regard with Joel Embiid, although less people put him in this category of best player in the league. But like, just if you're that type of back to the basket big man, or a face up, post up guy, or pick and roll big man, all that kind of stuff, you're not a ball handler, you're not a shot creator on the perimeter, you're not a stretch option really, your value is not going to be as good as it would have been a couple of decades ago. And really, I don't think this is Anthony Davis's fault whatsoever. That's just the direction the game has gone. But because it has gone in that direction, I think these type of players are just not as valued as they used to be. So for you to say that that player is the best player in the league, it's like maybe in 2006 he could be. That's actually a bad year to pick because Pete Kobe. But maybe 2000 and... oh, fuck it, I don't care. Either way, the value is not what it used to be. That's the point. If I am building a team in 2021, I'm going to choose a perimeter wing or guard to be the foundation of that team pretty much every time. Even worse players than Anthony Davis I would take over him just because of this element of the game and where it is today. I've said this before, not on YouTube, but I've said it before. I would feel more comfortable building a team around Jason Tatum than a team around Anthony Davis. And that is not because Jason Tatum is better than Anthony Davis, because I don't believe him to be. But Jason Tatum is a perimeter player, and perimeter play is the way the game goes right now. So I'd rather just build around someone who's like 80% as good as Anthony Davis, but I'm able to build around properly for today's game. And even though they've had their struggles, the Celtics have been better lately, but the last couple of years, a couple of struggles with Tatum at the forefront, feels like that's a little bit better than what AD was doing in New Orleans. Granted, there's a whole lot of context that gets that different, and can't really blame AD too much for that stuff in the past, but my point remains, just easier to build around a perimeter player. Simple as that. I think there is just simply a higher ceiling on a team with a perimeter guy as your number one rather than a big man, presuming that that perimeter guy is anywhere close to the talent of that big man. Now, as I said, this problem is not really his fault. However, what is his fault is the second problem. It's a factor in his game that goes beyond skill set or size or athleticism. Those factors are kind of all jumbled into one, and that is timidness, inconsistency, his tendency to settle, and a bit of a lack of an it factor. Now, all of this, and really the problem that comes in this discussion, is none of this is quantifiable in stats. It's just what you pick up on when you watch Anthony Davis play. As for the it factor, I will say that AD doesn't outright not have it. I would not say that, but whether or not he has it really depends on the day. And when it comes to being the best player in the league, I need to be able to rely on you to have it every single day. You can't do that with AD. And that really all bleeds into the inconsistency and the timidness, because it all culminates in some nights AD does look like the best player in the league, and that's why we see all the time people like, okay, this is AD's year, he's finally going to lock in mentally, and the good AD that we see, the best version, is just what we're gonna get every night. But then you get the nights where he's just really not that aggressive, he's settling for mid-range shots, which is a big issue that I have with him, and overall just not really asserting himself as that type of guy. And it feels like just timidness and lack of aggression, depending on the night, is really what determines this. There's a lot of times where he is settling for shots or kind of just falling asleep at the wheel. Ironically, it's a similar issue to Jason Tatum, and this is more so an offensive thing. AD's pretty damn consistent defensively, though there are ups and downs there, as it is with everybody. Rather than asserting himself, Anthony Davis consistently falls into the background of games where he could feasibly be the best player on the floor, but he just kind of isn't that day. And if you're going to be the best player in the league, I can't expect that to be a thing that happens consistently. And with AD, I expect that to be a thing that happens consistently. One example for this that stands out to me is when he played the Houston Rockets in the 2020 playoffs. He was guarded by a 6'5" PJ Tucker, and he spent the whole series taking mid-range jump shots. Now, because he was shooting over a much shorter player, these jump shots were dropping, but for someone having that size advantage, taking jump shots really doesn't make a lot of sense. I kind of always get annoyed when people talk about how great AD played in that series, because sure, yeah, he played great. But to me, the whole conversation, and this is also because that Rockets team has a weirdly special place in my heart. That Rockets team, everybody and their mother said AD's gonna dominate them in the paint. They can't handle the Lakers' interior presence. And then AD spends the entire series playing Dirk. And like, sure, he made the shots, but for all the shit that was talked about how much he would dominate in the paint, I didn't see that really. In spurts, sure, but just not to the extent that I would like for someone with Anthony Davis's capabilities in the paint. And instead, he just decided to shoot mid-range jump shots, which he's not bad at. But like, you could be getting much better offense if you just assert yourself. We've seen him do it before. What actually prompted me to write this script originally, because I actually wrote this script like a few weeks ago, was the opener of the season that they had versus the Golden State Warriors, where AD actually had a great game. However, hyper-fixating on his huge problems again, I noticed that the Warriors felt perfectly comfortable having Andrew Wiggins and Juan Toscano-Anderson be AD's primary defender, and it worked no issue because AD was taking jump shots. He attacked the rim a few times, but with a mismatch like that, he should have been relentless. Also, same thing could be said against how he played against the Chicago Bulls and Derrick Jones Jr. Now, I will say, the defensive system that was levied against him made it so that it was hard for him to get a shot up, period. But even then, there were multiple instances where Derrick Jones was just checking him one-on-one, and he didn't have to worry about help defense, and he just kind of didn't do anything with it. Anyways, those are my reasons why I'm just not as high on Anthony Davis as most. The guy is still a superstar caliber player, but for him to be the best player in the league, the fact that he is a more traditional type big, or at least traditional by today's standards, because obviously a ton of mid-range shots wasn't traditional in the 60s, but you know what I mean? Because he's that type of player, automatically his value is just inherently a little bit lower than it would be if he was a perimeter player. But then also the fact that he has so many issues with asserting himself and timidness and falling asleep at the wheel and it factor that's off and on. Either way, that inconsistency keeps him out of that conversation for me. You can feel free to disagree, but I just trust all of the 8 names that I have above him to be my team's best player over him easily. So yeah. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for NBA content like this, and keep the outro music.